People of Reddit, what was the dumbest thing you got punished for in school? We got 25 questions for homework. I did 24 questions, but didn't understand question 25. The teacher gave me 20 lines signed by my parents for not doing my homework. In 7th grade I found a notebook in the hallway and turned it into my teacher. I was suspended for 3 days because there was a drawing of a centaur holding a pitchfork and they deemed that as gang related. This is in Atlanta, so no gangs matching that description here. Elementary school. Was in the bathroom stall taking a dump during lunch. Someone runs in and starts kicking all the stall doors into where it becomes a pain for kids my age at the time, obviously, to open them. Kerblum. Door swings in toward me just a bit and gets stuck. I'm trying my best to get the damn door open to no avail. Don't remember how long I was in there alone just crying, but one of the lunch aides comes to lock the door to the bathroom for the day, hears me, gets me out of there, then proceeds to yell at me for being in the bathroom at that time. She goes so far as to take me to the office to have my mother called in, which they do instead of letting me explain myself. When she shows up and I explain myself to her, she gets irate and tears everyone in the school office a new one. No matter what I did from then on, I never had my mother called while I was there. Flip the monitor screen upside down, CTRL plus Alt plus arrow key. Got banned from using any school computer for the rest of the year. One time my best friend at the time and I both female exchanged a hug at recess because we were in different classes. One of my teachers sent us to the wall where we had to stand for 30 minutes alone because she claimed by hugging we were trying to turn on our male friends. We were in grade 6. Some guy pushed his friend down the stairs in elementary and said guy landed on me. Got detention for missing an important lesson while I was out cold in the infirmary. I got a lollipop as an apology for the detention. After it was explained though. A big lollipop. In 6th grade the teacher ripped up my assignment in front of the class and gave me detention because I didn't wait until I was home to do my homework. 8th grade. Our school had a weird layout where you had to walk through classrooms to get to another classroom. As I was passing through one, I was telling my friend how this new video game is freaking awesome. Teacher pulls me aside and asks what I said. I told her I said it was freaking awesome and she scolded me for using a substitute for a bad word. What? Dis be chained even my teacher and she's telling me I can't use a substitute? I asked her, what about don or heck? Aren't though they technically substitutes? She got all red in the face and huffy and said, "Geo to the principals right now for talking back." I told her I would be late for class, which is right through that door. She didn't appreciate the added defiance and grabbed my bicep and dragged me into the classroom. She told my teacher what I said and yelled, "Discipline him however you feel is necessary." My teacher nodded and she huffed out of the room. My teacher bent down and whispered that she gets grouchy in the mornings. Just be careful what I say when I pass her. And that was that. Edit, a word. Grade 7. One kid made fun of another kid, the wrong kid, and wrong kid pulled him out of his chair and pinned him to the ground and started yelling at him. Then he started bashing his head against the tile floor. There was lots of blood like immediately. I wasn't thinking, I just ran over from my chair and tackled the kid who was doing the smashing off the guy on the floor. As soon as the fight had started the teacher ran from the room and got the principal and they both ran back and in the door just in time to see my tackle. Next thing I know the principal was pulling me off of the other kid and literally carrying me to his office. I was pretty upset. I never did well with violence, so I just cried in his office. I was confused from the whole thing, but once I calmed down he asked me what happened, and pretty much the second I opened my mouth he called me a liar and said he saw everything and knew what I did and couldn't believe I of all people would do that. I couldn't get a word in to tell my story. The kid who had his head slammed was taken to the hospital. I was told that, and really only that, and how serious what I did was. They called my parents and said I did it, and they needed to come at once and get me. I was suspended and likely would be expelled. I couldn't believe it. When my mom got there she just told me not to say anything. She was crying and said she never thought I'd do such a thing. When I got in the car I swore up and down I didn't do anything. I think she believed me, but she cried the whole car ride home. I sat and stewed. I don't know how long it took them to actually talk to the kids in the class after that. Certainly it didn't happen in the hour, or whatever it was between, when the incident happened, and I got sent home. But it should have been the first thing. There was a call to my mom apologizing to her, and saying I actually did the right thing. And then at the end of the school year, like a month later, they gave me some community award at the end of year assembly for what I did. But I never forget the initial reaction, when they had me scared I'd be kicked out of school for doing what I thought was the right thing. Trying to go to the library during lunch. They said I needed a hall pass. Fine, I went and got one. Then they were upset because the hall pass didn't have an end time on it, but the teacher who gave me the pass was the same class I'd returned to after lunch. It was a split period class. And when I tried to show them my schedule to prove that, they sent me to the principal's office for insubordination. I just wanted to do some research for a paper. Jokes on them. That teacher ended up just giving me several pre-signed passes because, in his words, that is just really dumb. My school forbids students from dyeing their hair. One day after a weekly assembly, they decided to do a spot check. No socks? Punished. No school badge on your breast pocket? Punished. See, my hair is black. But when exposed under the sun, it turns dirt brown. They did a spot check under the sun that day, and guess who got punished for dyeing their hair? This was 10 years ago. Yawning. I was in math class, and while the teacher was doing a problem, I yawned. Not loudly, not exaggeratedly. I just covered my mouth and did a silent yawn. Teacher saw and literally stopped teaching and stared me down. I turned red and just sat there, and she squared her shoulders and said, "Since you aren't going to apologize for disrespecting me, you can get out of my classroom. It's too boring here anyways for you, I suppose." I was confused and asked why, and she said, "You're just too smart to be here, so get out." I went to the office and couldn't tell them why I was in trouble. When the teacher called down, she said I yawned and looked bored. The principal wasn't very happy with her reason and scolded her before sending me back to class, but still, what the frig. When I was in the 6th grade, I had a doctor's appointment on a test day, so I came in late. My teacher sent me to a neighboring classroom to take the test while they went over the answers. On the very last question, I ended up doing eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and the teacher of the neighboring classroom happened to look over at me as my pencil was going back and forth between answers. She stopped her whole class and yelled, "Did you just do eeny, meeny, miny, mo?" Me, thinking I had just committed murder, told her no, so she freaked out and called my teacher. Outraged, I had a very nervous walk back to my classroom, and my teacher was just like, "Sup," and didn't even mention it. Edit. I wasn't saying it out loud, I was doing it in my head, and she assumed I did it based on my pencil moving back and forth between the two answers, which makes it even more stupid of a freak out. There were these two sisters who bullied me and my best friend for months. We went to the principal many times and nothing was ever done about it. One day they were following us around after school talking shoot, and finally I turned around and said something along the lines of them being fat and to leave us alone. We know it's a shooty comeback, especially compared to all the things they were saying. But whatever, my friend went home, and minutes later they jumped me from behind in the main lobby, and I got a 2-day suspension for instigating the fight. For answering a question incorrectly. There was this terrible teacher who would make you stand up in the class and say "I'm a twit" if you answered the question she asked you wrong. It's a terrible thing to instill in kids, to be afraid to make a mistake and to attempt to humiliate them for trying. Not me, but a classmate. Dude got in trouble for following the rules perfectly. When I was in 8th grade, I had a teacher who was super strict, like a total control freak, and wouldn't let anyone so much as speak without raising their hand and being acknowledged. One day, the teacher was particularly distracted, and a kid raised his hand to go to the bathroom. Now this kid was notorious for not giving a single frig, even by 8th grade standards. He'll never know why, but instead of just breaking the rules and getting the teacher's attention, he sat in silence for a few minutes, put his hand down, and straight up pissed himself. I think it was in protest of her ridiculous zero tolerance for anything at all policy, but he'll never know for sure. The best part of the story, he waited until she was finished doing whatever it was at her desk and raised his hand and asked if he could call home for new shorts. The teacher obviously asked why, and he responded by telling her he pissed himself because he didn't have permission to use the bathroom and didn't say anything because he wasn't given permission to speak. You could literally see how mad the teacher was because he technically didn't break any rules and couldn't be punished. That didn't stop her from writing him up for pissing himself, which, if I remember correctly, the office threw it out when he explained the situation. From that point on, the new rule in the classroom was, if there's an emergency, just quietly go relieve yourself. I was around 8 at the time, sitting in our school assembly, with everyone singing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Little me thinking I was hilarious, sang out used to laugh and call him names, like fish face, and then laughed at my amazing wit. My teacher instantly gave me daggers and tells me I have after school detention. So I'm annoyed sitting in detention, forced to write out the lyrics to the song over and over, thinking wow, this woman is passionate about Rudolph. After 45 minutes I mustered up the courage to ask what's so bad about saying fish face. As it turns out she thought I said frick face. Still had to stay in detention for another half hour. In high school I skipped a class that I didn't have. I told the teacher and she agreed that I wasn't even allowed to take that particular class. 2 days detention. Not shaving Catholic school. Boys had to be clean shaven every day. In Greek, the company that makes Brillo pads pays us royalties. I'd shave in the morning and have a 5 o'clock shadow by 10 AM. Shortly after lunch I had legit stubble. 2 detentions and a forced dry shaving before I went in one morning, presented myself to the dean of students to show how nice and cleanly shaven I was, and then reported back after lunch with an almost beard. Punishment stopped after that. I don't know what I would have done if the DOS had left the school before graduation. I guess go through it all over again. 5th or 6th grade, I told a friend I liked a girl, or had a crush on this girl. He wrote her a love letter, signed my name, and slid it in her locker. The next morning I got called to the office. My teacher was there, with another teacher holding the note, asked me why I done this. I didn't do that, I said. They got my notebook to compare the handwriting. Completely different, but they insisted it was identical. I gave up after about 30 minutes and accepted my punishment of 1 day lunch detention, eat lunch alone, whatever. 2 days later I found out who did it. Had good times. Getting beat up by 2 other kids in the bathroom. When I was in 5th grade, we were doing our end of year testing, so we were supposed to be well behaved and serious. They gave us a bathroom break, so a large group of boys all went. When I came out of the stall, one kid grabbed me from behind and held my arms behind my back, and another kid kept punching me in the stomach and chest. My teacher came storming in. Everyone dispersed, and she grabbed me by the arm and dragged me back to class. I was forced to write the 2 boys who beat me up an apology letter. She threatened to have me expelled from the entire school district if I didn't, and never gave me the chance to explain myself. Me being a 5th grader, I thought I had to listen to her, and I was always too afraid to tell my parents out of fear of getting in trouble. The 2 boys never got in trouble. I was the only one who did, and I was never allowed to explain my side of the story. Edit. Wow. Thanks for the support and compassion, guys. I've told this story a few times on Reddit and never really received much support from anyone. Thank you, guys.